107.1 is WTLZ Saginaw, home of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, and simply the best R&B all day. Take us everywhere. Your smartphone, the JOB, and your Alexa smart device.
Well, good evening, Saginaw. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Straight Talk. I am your host, Kareem Bowen. It is a beautiful day outside on today. It started off a little drizzly, but the sun has shone its way through, and it's been a beautiful day. Hey, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I haven't heard any bad news. I almost feel like the Wicked Witch of the West. Don't nobody bring me no bad news. I'm in the studio today with my main man, the Rob Father, on the board for me. Rob, why don't you give a shout out to everybody?
What's up, Straight Talk audience? Happy to be here, and shh, no bad news.
No bad news. Only good news accepted here today. Good vibes, good emotions, good feelings.
That's
all
right, baby.
All right. So we are here on this afternoon, and we're ready to have a good conversation with those of you out there. Those of you tuning on social media, I want you to like, tag, and share this conversation. Let people know what's going on. Tell them it's time to get to the radio. Straight Talk is getting ready to happen. And we're going to continue that conversation that we started on last week about gun violence. We're going to lend a bit more time to that conversation so that we can really begin to address some of the issues that we're dealing with in our community. We got to do something about it. I know we're talking, it's a conversation, but I know that we're getting ready to mobilize, Rob. We're getting ready to make some things happen. We've got to be seen in our community. All right. So shout out to all of those that are listening. See you guys tuning in on our social media streams. Thank you for coming in. Why don't you tag some people, get them involved in the conversation so that we can begin to move. What's going on, my man? T. Reed, what's up, fam? Jeff Bull, Stacy Crosby, Rebecca Townsend, Garth. All of you guys that are tuning in, thank you for tuning in, as you often do. We greatly appreciate your listenership. All right, so I want to get to right what's on my mind. There's a lot that is happening, a lot that's going on. The first thing is, everybody, I don't know if you, to me, it seems I almost felt dyslexic or disconnected, maybe might be a better word, in terms of trying to catch the Olympics this year. It seemed I just couldn't find like what was happening, when it was happening. It just seemed like in times past, Rob, like I knew the track and field was going to happen at this time. All of the big races was going to happen here. These were my back boxing fights I was going to watch, but it did not happen that way. So I got bits and pieces of the Olympics. It was just a very different experience, not having crowds and people and all of that stuff. And I'm sure the athletes would say the same thing. Did you keep up with any of the Olympics?
No, I usually don't. I usually get bits and pieces after the fact, but I've been following certain important news things like COVID causing a lot of the discombobulation of media coverage and what have you. So my heart goes out to that. But hey, Team USA, baby.
Well, this has been interesting. We've seen a lot of crazy stuff take place, and I'm watching videos that I'm thinking happened this year, and I'm like, oh, this is 2017. This was not this year's Olympics, or 2018, I think it was. But anyway, so this is the closing ceremony for the Olympics. Salute all of those Olympians who have made that extra sacrifice, who have gone the extra yard, who have put in extra time on the field, on the court, on the mat when everyone else has gone home. We celebrate you. We salute you for doing great. All of those bringing medals back to the U.S. as victors and champs, and also those who are coming back with just the experience of being called an Olympian. To the U.S. Olympic basketball team, we salute you. You had us scared for a second, but you pulled out the gold medal. So to all of those guys out there, Katie, who was the MVP, LeBron, who stayed at home but still encouraged the team from the sideline. But I really wanted to say Draymond Green here in the city of Saginaw. Whoop, whoop. Go Green, go Day, bringing home the Olympic gold to the city of Saginaw. We certainly thank you and appreciate you for all that you do and are doing. This is so cool. Trevor Hoskins, my man from the D. Good shout out. Good talking to you. Hopefully you tune in and just kind of stay involved in the conversation. He's one of the students out that I had out of SVSU. He's doing great things down in Detroit. I believe he's working for Ford Motor Company, but he's doing some amazing things. My man, congratulations on the newbie that you had, the addition to the family. So proud of you. You continue to do a great job. And I know there's a lot of people that are tuning in that will listen to this and say, hey, that was Trev. Hey, Trev, you're a popular man around these parts. So great to hear from you. But Rob, as I look at this, I was thinking about the real story. And this story is actually going to come up as we talk about the issue with gun violence in the community. That sounds good right there, Rob. I feel good right there. The issue of gun violence in the community. And that is a story of our Olympic champion, Simone Biles.
I was thinking about her.
And so
mention her name.
Absolutely, man. And so when I look at what has transpired over this Olympic and how she's really kind of changed. She took over the Olympics. Is she going to perform? Is she not? Is she going to be a part? And it was very powerful. And I know that you're going to have a lot to say about this. It was very powerful to see her as an Olympic athlete, to say, hey, I'm not going to do this. My mentals, as she calls it, my mentals are not good. I would probably stand the risk of really hurting myself or doing bodily harm and really jeopardizing this opportunity for my team. And because my mental state is not where it needs to be, I'm going to pull out and disqualify myself. Rob, what were your thoughts? Because I thought about it. I was like, this would be an interesting conversation with Rob.
I fully support it because, your own personal well-being is more important than the medal or putting on a show for the media, for people. And those who cannot sympathize with that, don't have any sympathy for anything else, as far as I'm concerned. Like all props to her. She knew she was wise at the beginning to do something, because otherwise she could have done something and it could have been tragic. And then I could have taken attention from all the other Olympians who were there to, to perform and do what they needed to do and concentrate. So, shout out to Simone for to do the right thing.
At the end of the day, she is the GOAT.
Exactly.
And we all know what GOAT stands for, greatest of all time.
There you go.
So once you're the GOAT, you're the GOAT. You don't have to be the extra GOAT. So I appreciate her.
And a whole lot of respect to her for that too. And
Absolutely.
I think that's going to take her far further, because she was bold enough to say that, and she brought attention to mental illness and mental, problems, especially among African Americans who do not normally.
We don't ever talk about that. We
Exactly.
never talk about mental illness
Exactly.
and how that impacts us as individuals. And there's a lot of people that we see in the community and in across the country.
Yes.
In our communities that need help. If you come from most Black circles, they want to pray for you and pray it out. But there's some things that really need to be talked out. There's some things that need to just have time and just process, and a person to be able to have time to pull themselves together. And so I want to give a great shout out to Simone Biles. You truly are the gold Olympian. I think that your bronze medal, and to her and to us, to me, for people who are standing up for those who have issues of mental health.
Well, you mentioned this. I'm glad you asked this question because this is a revelation about myself. A lot of people do not know, but I too have suffered from mental depression, and I think that's why I sympathize with it. I'm not saying people who have not suffered from it, but if you have actually suffered from some form of mental depression or mental situation that you needed medication for, or counseling, or time to deal with, you can better understand and appreciate where Simone was coming from. That's I just wanted to put that out there.
Not only that, but we have every person alive, every person that will hear this video broadcast, you have suffered from some form of mental illness at one particular time. Now, when we hear the term mental illness, we often think crazy. We think that we're going to a padded room with a straitjacket on, but that's not what we're talking about. Whenever you're not fully yourself, whenever you feel as you mentioned, depression, that's one thing. But whenever you feel anxiety, extreme anxiety, sometimes it's just not feeling well or just a little bit off. That is what, mental illness is. And it doesn't have to be the most extreme case.
No.
But we have to begin to have conversations about even those small things. And if we can begin to engage about small things, like she said, my mental feels are not there.
Right.
If we can engage in conversations about small things, that will help us to begin to recognize what are our norms? Where are we at? Because what I did see is that her teammates and other Olympic staff who knew her came to her rescue saying, there's something wrong here. That this is not normal. So I want to say to Simone, thank you for being a true Olympian and recognizing that, hey, an athlete, a real athlete will tell you that when you get out there and what they're doing, it is only 10% physical and it's 90% mental. And if you've never turned a flip, you've never turned a cartwheel, if you've never shot a basketball, you've never gone down a slalom or skied or any of those things, then you certainly would not understand that.
That's right.
But for those who have athletes, that sports, an athletic sport, is really 90% mental and it's 10% physical. That's why greats like Tiger Woods, when they get in that slump, you get in the shooter slump. It's not the fact that you can't connect. It's not that the fact you can't crank, but it's the fact that your mind is not in the right place. Your mental feels, and I love the way she says that, are not in the place that you're able to function the way that you can. But, you know, and some people have to shoot it out. They tell a shooter that you got to continue to shoot, and you keep that stroke going. And you see those of you who are seeing on social media, y'all seeing that mad follow through I got right there, you know. But you keep shooting, you shoot your way out of it. But there's sometimes when you're in the air and you're going as fast as these young women are going, and you're flipping and turning, if you don't get your footing right, you could easily break a leg, break a neck, you know, and really hurt yourself or someone else. So Moan Bobs, we greatly appreciate it. I want to say HSC and me, those who Hemlock Semiconductors, thank you once again. All those amazing sponsors that were a part of the HSC and me Minority Engagement STEM month. It has been an entire month. Absolutely amazing. We finished with the high schoolers, Rob. My mind was absolutely blown away. I knew that we were going to have something special happen. This last week, as we were talking about solar, we brought in someone who was all about app development, and he took them through how to create like amazing apps, like the ones you download on Google and Google Play and what is it? Apple Music or whatever. Whatever you people do with those Apple phones. Yeah, you people. And he went through and he was showing them. So I knew that we were going to be in store for something great when it came to the pitch competition. And I want to give a shout out to our mayor, Brenda Moore, who was one of the judges for this particular event. And when they gave these pitches, I mean, these apps, I mean, the concepts were great. The information was great. But when the app portion of it went forward, to see how our young people were able to ideate and create these amazing apps, I said, some of these things probably should have been on Shark Tank. So thank you for all of those sponsors, HSC, Garber, Delta College, the Downtown Center. Hey, if any of you are taking classes, you have an opportunity to get down to that Downtown Center for Delta. It is absolutely amazing, state-of-the-art facility. They were like, hey, Mr. Bowen, next year we want to fill the entire building up with young people learning science, technology. They've opened their doors. I want to thank, Covenant Healthcare. Now, this is something that's very important. As we're talking about young people and things that are important for young people, we need to have access to science, technology, all of those things. Right. But what is most important is our young people need to learn how to become critical thinkers. Oh, yes. And Covenant Healthcare came over, Rob, and they took these young people, all 50 of them, and they showed them how to begin to look at a situation, how to identify the problem, and then how to systematically begin to engage upon that problem, how to create a solution that is both innovative and creative and new, and how to track that solution through its completion. Cool. And when we begin to raise young minds who are critical thinkers, we can think past the, you stepped on my shoe or you looked at me the wrong way, because we identify the problem. We're able to see the big picture. Right. So I want to thank Covenant for doing that. Microsoft, Saginaw Arts Museum, Prolific Printing, Legacy Print, and Sign Company, Alpha Media. Excuse me, Rob, I'm messing with your mics again. Excuse me, I got to get them out of my way. But Alpha Media for allowing us to have these amazing conversations with CEOs and people that are part of the program. It has been absolutely amazing. We now are turning towards Dow Treasure Academy. One of the things I want to do as a part of Straight Talk is that make sure we are continually bringing great opportunities to our young people and young minds in our community. The Dow Treasure Academy. It is what we did with HSC on steroids. We have many of the most popular companies in the world that are going to be a part of this program. We have some of the best and most productive entrepreneurs in the world. We got billionaires that are attached to this program waiting to inspire and to pour into these young people. So please make sure that you shoot me a message here at Straight Talk. Give me a call, 989-714-6957. If you have someone that is going into the 9th, and I may even say 10th grader, they need to get involved. They have an opportunity to begin to apply for this. And we're going to make great things happen with that program. All right, continuing forward, I just want to say shout out to Twin Cuts. I know that they're going to be doing their grand opening soon. And as a barbershop over at KBS Creative Business Solution, I did see a bit of a video. I was like, I wasn't expecting that, but they will be in business. We're moving forward. Great things are happening in the city of Saginaw. And I'm waiting for that chicken and fries joint to open up so we can get some chicken and fries, Rob. I'm going to try for the first time. Everybody says you have to try the lemon pepper. I'm ready to try the lemon pepper wings. I've been a little bit hesitant because I'm a honey barbecue Asian zing kind of person.
Right.
But lemon pepper, everybody keeps telling me that is the move. So I'm going to try that. All right. So we're going to get it.
When did they open? They open in September, right?
They're opening up this in September coming up. So that's just a couple of weeks away. School is about to be back in session.
Yes.
We hope.
So while the kids are in school and adults can have free.
We can come over and get some free wings, right?
Chicken on.
So I want you guys to really, hopefully, we're paying attention to what's happening with this new variant, this Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus. It is fully out there, and people are just acting like it is over. I am fully vaccinated, Rob. I know that you're fully vaccinated, and I'm just blown away at how casual people are living. I have probably about 5 or 6 people that are or have been in the hospital over this next period of time. Sister Olga Jones, we are praying for you. My report that I got on today is that you're doing much better. You're breathing on your own. I got a great report from Las Vegas. My uncle's fiance, Sister Stacy Simmons, she is now out of ICU. She is now breathing on her own, her and her father. So we're glad to see that you're doing well. This has been such a crazy moment for so many people, but this time it is no joke. I was sitting there and I saw one of the Pratt brothers. But I think you got sick, and he's telling his testimony like, don't take this, lying down, don't sleep on this. Let's make sure that we get vaccinated. Let's do what we can because this is the real deal. And people are getting this left and right. And they're saying, I had family members who are saying that, we don't think that it's going to be that bad. Well, when your whole family's locked up and nobody can breathe and you're being rushed to the hospital, you begin to rethink some things. And so we're praying that you all please take a cue from those who are speaking out, saying that this is much worse than they could have ever anticipated. We want to keep the village safe, y'all. We want our elders to be around, and so the young people as well. So let's make sure we keep our mind in the game. Rob, I know that we're going to pay some commercial break, some bills here pretty soon. So why don't we
can just do that now?
Why don't we go ahead and do that, and we'll come back. We'll get right into our topic today. What's going on? What's the state of our city? What's going on with all the shootings? How can we begin to combat these issues of gun violence? It's time to take action. Stay tuned for more Straight Talk.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
It's a celebration, and you're invited to the 90th anniversary for First Ward Community Service and the Old Timers 80th Annual Children's Celebration, Thursday, August 12th at First Ward from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. Bring the entire family out for this community event. There will be free food, games, and activities for the children. Police and fire department will be present. And get a wealth of information from community vendors at the 90th anniversary for First Ward Community Service and the Old Timers 80th Annual Children's Celebration at First Ward, Thursday, August 12th. We'll see you there.
RocketGrabPlus.com. This week's deal on RocketGrabPlus.com is for third-generation auto in Bay City. You're going to get a full synthetic oil change, a free pair of wiper blades, also a 35-point inspection, complete lube, filter, and all fluids topped off in the same day, and at no extra charge. This deal would normally cost you $110, but you are getting it for $39.99. Head to RocketGrabPlus.com right now to snag your deal.
RocketGrabPlus.com. Is finding the clothes that you love in just the right fit and size an overwhelming task? Experience a new way to shop with Stitch Fix. Our experts hand-select pieces so you can get the ease of personal styling from the convenience of home. Every piece is curated just for you, for staying home or on the go in your unique style. With Stitch Fix, there's never any subscription required, and it's delivered right to your door. Get started today at StitchFix.com. Stitch Fix, your style delivered.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents and Doug.
Check it out, Limu, a roadside carnival.
Step right up, folks. Test your strength. Come see the fire-breathing baby.
Let's fan out and tell people that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Look! An emo wearing sunglasses!
Limu, you're famous. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
All right, we're back with more Straight Talk. We're going to get right into our conversation for today. For those of you who are here with us and you were on the first portion, we just want to say thank you for tuning in. Let's continue to build this conversation and this audience. Let's like, tag, and share this post. If you're listening and you want to get this and other broadcasts and repeat or just hear what we've been talking about, you can go to kisswtlz.com. That is the webpage for the station, and you'll be able to see Straight Talk on there. We have an archive of past shows that are available to you. Or, one of the coolest things I like to do is I love the crackle of the radio. So instead of listening to it on social media, I like to get in my car or turn it on to that, go to that radio station, kisswtlz.com, and just listen to it from there. And you'll hear exactly what we are hearing on the radio. So thank you guys for tuning in on this afternoon as we continue this conversation. On last week, we began this conversation. And it was interesting because I talked to some of our civic officials, and it's almost unfair, Rob, to ask them, what are you going to do about the problem? Because this is not a Mayor Brenda Moore problem. This is not a city council solely problem, but this is a Saginaw community problem that really reflects what we're seeing across urban areas across the nation. This is not just relegated to the state of Michigan or the city of Saginaw, but it's what mayors and city officials are saying across the country. What are we going to do with this increased level of gun violence? And there's no real answer, and people are scratching their heads saying, I don't know what to do. So Rob, how do we move forward? And I know we've had conversations because Philly is one of those unique cities. No offense, Rob. When I came to Philly, I was like, hey, I know this is like the seat of our democracy where the framers formed and all the liberty, but I was like, I don't like this city. It just looked like violence or us, but I mean, no offense, Philly.
Well, no, I grew up in West Philly, North Philly.
Everything was
Philly.
Concrete. It was like the concrete jungle.
Yes.
And so,
I grew up in all that,
So what are some of the things that they did? Because I know they had a really bad issue and things are flaring up again. But what were some of the things that they did in Philly, if you could recall, that made a difference in terms of what happened in the community? I know some things that have happened here.
I can't say recently because I haven't been there recently, except for my mother's funeral a couple of years ago. And it's still the same as I grew up, just a little bit more. I guess like I said on last week's show, a lot more gun clapping this time because people are triggered easily. Before we just followed out in the streets. But to combat that, I knew a lot of block captains, because we have block captains that control the block and things of that sort, did things to try to bring the community together by opening up or stressing that we have little things for youth to do. Basketball courts, go in the schoolyard to play basketball, go to little parks in the area to have basketball.
Community centers.
Community centers. That's what I'm trying to get to. Community centers. But then the funding dries out, eventually. I used to be a counselor at one of the community centers as a teenager years ago. A lot of that eventually dries out. So the only thing we can do is, summertime block parties. And then we pray for the winter because the winter, a lot of that cuts down. Nobody wants to do anything in the cold. Black people don't like cold, okay? So we don't do anything in the cold. So a lot of that gun clapping calms down. But still, we're still dealing with people who are triggered easily by anything. I'm beginning to wonder whether or not something's in the vaccine that's causing all this because
Rob, okay, yeah, we're gonna let him stop right there with another conspiracy theory. We will not be Right Ring Radio on this afternoon. All right, but one of our listeners, Jeff Bulls, who's always giving a very poignant perspective, says that violence is a symptom of the bigger virus, which is poverty. If we address poverty properly, we address violence and many other ills in our community. More policing is a band-aid without systematically, changing their institution as is they are ineffective. And it's not just poverty that's an issue because it's poverty. I think that there's education, and then there are some, as we can continue this conversation, there are some historical factors that play a part in how this is.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we take a look at those things. Mm-hmm. Historic. There are some genetic issues that often play a part in violence, and we'll talk about that. When I say genetic, I'm talking about historical mental health issues, like we were talking before.
Things like alcoholism, things of that sort. Drug abuse.
Absolutely. So I want to just really quick. So we've got to begin together. I gave you a list of 8 things that we needed to do. I'm going to get through those 8 before as we get into this conversation. We've got to begin to get visible. We have to be seen in our community. I'll tell you right now. People are not feeling the safest after, in certain times of day. And it used to be like there was a certain part of the community that you can, in a certain neighborhood you couldn't be in.
That's
But
right.
I mean, this stuff is happening everywhere. And so, which I think is going to be better in terms of having all eyeballs to handle the issue, because if it was relegated to one community, we would isolate that community, let it happen, let them kill themselves, and we would move on to the next.
But the bad part about it is police brutality did not help matters, because it used to be we just call the police and the police will come out in certain neighborhoods, but the last few years,
we have a situation, I think, that's in our community that recently came up. I think there was a police that was involved in the shooting. There's not much being said about it. I don't know if you've heard about it, Rob, but I got the low on it. And so we're going to see what happens. I think there was a shooting where a police officer was involved.
I did
recently.
Hear about that story.
What's that?
I think I did hear about it.
You did hear about it. So we'll see what happens with that. But you're absolutely right. That is one key. But we've got to begin to be seen walking the streets again. I remember, and I say this because I have to speak from the point of reference that I have most knowledge. And I remember in the 80s and the 90s, especially in the 90s, KRS-One came up with that idea of doing the self-destruction. Mm-hmm. We did those themes, those public service announcements, Flavor Flav. We had conscious artists. Right now, we got a whole bunch of artists who are talking about crazy stuff,
right?
But then there were artists that spoke and they rapped and they talked about the hood, and they were talking about the culture, and they were talking about what needed to change. They
kept it real.
Yeah, they kept it real, but they weren't just talking about shaking your booty in the club, throwing dollars, what I'm going to drive. They were talking about the mental state of the Black man. They were talking about how we have to open our eye. Left eye. She made a powerful statement, and people thought it was just crazy by putting a condom on one of her eyes. She said, she covered the left eye because the eye is right. So we've got to begin to be seen in our community. We've got to have these conversations in our community. And I'm going to be very honest. If you are a Black male, you are greatly needed. If you're a Black male in this community, you're doing anything positive. And even if you're not doing anything positive, you just want to see something different happen in your community, you need to be seen walking the streets. I know I told the parishioners at my church today, like, I'm tired of it. Like, I don't want to be in the four walls of the church. We won't be at Bible study on Thursday. You me tell you why, Rob? Because we're going to be standing on the streets. We're going to be walking down Court Street, walking down Genesee, holding up our signs and declaring that change is going to happen. We've got to begin to put a plan into action, but visibility goes so far. And it is so important for us to do like the parishioners on patrol did. Right. It's almost 20 years ago now. That they were making themselves visible. We've got to be visible in the community at the right time.
And that shows the what's the term used? The village is coming together, because it used to be the village looked out for one another, and they scolded your kids if you didn't do right, or they scolded each other. Say, hey, you should have done this.
Man, you're going to get beat up. You try to scold somebody's kids right now. They don't want you saying nothing to them, and definitely don't say nothing to my kids, all right?
But I'm talking about talking to other adults.
Absolutely.
If I see you say, hey, Kareem, your daughter isn't doing so-and-so, or maybe you can come out and join us with this sort of thing instead of being locked up in the house, watching everything else going on, or being a tattletale. Come on out to the community and be a part of this thing. You said Black men, Black women too.
Yes, you mentioned block parties. And I just remember growing up and having block parties and just having a good time. But Jeffrey Bulls, you bring into something that's very, very important conversation. He posted in the stream. He says, the ARPA funds have to become, part of this conversation.
Yes.
And Jeff, you're so right. And this week I'm going to be giving a call to our city manager. I've spoken with individuals from city council, and the reality of the situation, I just talked with somebody else that was in Lansing, and then someone else, another group of people that were in Detroit, and they were a part of the conversations that are going on about how they're going to spend their ARPA funds. And they asked us what we were doing. I said we were waiting to the fall, and they were like, "Why are you waiting to the fall?" I said, "I guess we wait until crime goes down so that we don't talk about crime anymore." I don't know. We're waiting. What are we waiting for? I don't know if funds spend better, if it's easier to transfer funds in the fall, or what the deal is. But this week, y'all, I'll make it my point. Last week was the ending of a very busy month, but this week I'll be making it my point to give a call to the city manager. And I want to ask some questions, like, why are we not strategically preparing for these funds, since we've already gotten, if not all of it, we've gotten, I know, one allotment, 26 million of that money. Why are we not creating a plan? It's not like we don't see what we need.
Right.
I love the fact that we got Garber courts going up, and when you have endowment and funds and people putting money together, I think those things are very important. Now we got to make sure we get some little Black and brown kids over there to learn how to play tennis, because the more we teach our children and expose our children, the more refined they become, and they learn how to harness and use that energy in another way. So stop talking about Garber Courts. That man gives millions of dollars when you won't give 5 to anything that makes a difference in the community. Okay. All right. But I also think that we've got to begin, as Jeff said, we got to have a conversation. There's no way that we should have so many issues with crime that we're having right now. Guns popping off on last Sunday, which is supposed to be the Lord's Day, when everybody used to go to church. COVID's got churches shut down and shook. The Christians are shook by COVID. Okay, that's what it would appear. They stand at home, and so now there is. I mean, this not that I'm not going to say that is the reason. No. But what I will say is that on a day that in our communities we typically went to church, everyone is home, and I think on last Sunday there were 3 or 4 different groupings of shootings or shooting in the air if someone didn't get shot. There was all of this going on, and we've got to begin to engage. City Manager Mr. Morales, hola senor, we must have a conversation about what we are going to do with this money. We don't have the privilege of waiting until fall, when our communities and our streets are becoming baby Beirut. What were you going to say, Rob?
I think since either March or April, I started with Joyce Harvin's show, Community Connections. Either you and Joyce or both all together at the same time. I think it's around March or April, we first heard about this. Now, after constantly hearing about it and constantly pushing the issue and whatnot, I'm still baffled what is happening and why wait till the fall. We're 5 months into the whole conversation right now.
I'll tell you what's happening, Rob. Nothing.
No, I don't see anything happening.
But I said then,
not much anyway.
And I'll say this again. Those of you who are out there listening, if you go silent on asking the question, what are we going to do with the $52 million that has been gifted as a gift to this city?
Right.
It is not a part of a budget that is necessary. It is not a part of a shortfall. It is not a part of that COVID response. This is new ideation, new creation, new job, new theory. Dream a big dream, 52 million kinds of dollars. Okay. And so we've got to continue to have that conversation, because when we have an issue that drugs too, but when we have an issue that violence is so pervasive in our community, and that lets us know one thing: our young people, because this ain't grown 40-year-old men running around shooting.
No,
this is these young punks, these young dudes. I don't want to call them punks. Young people who have nowhere to go, nothing to do.
Punks.
And they may be, but there's always hope, Rob. Hopefully, I'm a person who believes that if we invest, we connect, we show a concern, because what has happened is these young people have grown up as weeds. We had babies raising babies. Remember, Brenda got a baby. Tupac talked about it. Now we're dealing with the generational fallout of having folks who are babies having babies, grandmothers now forced to raise babies. She's too young to take care of the baby, so the baby's at home. Grandma's doing the best that she can. But the fact of the matter is, these young kids are growing up like weeds. And if we don't begin to have surrogate parents, coaches, community center leaders, that's why I love what's happening at the NABE. They've come back and said, we're going to restore, recover, and rebuild this portion by getting this neighborhood house. We've got to begin to look at what our youth are in need of, to keep them not busy, but really engaged. Right. And there's a difference between busy. Kids
positively
know
engaged.
Absolutely. Kids know when you're keeping them busy. And when they know that you're trying to keep them busy, they get antsy and they're no longer interested. But when you engage a child, when you speak to a child's interest, you entertain their mind. And when we begin to engage our young people, and that means we listen to what they're saying. This is a TikTok generation. There should be no reason why young people aren't having TikTok explosive parties. We've got to begin to be innovative in the way that we capture our young people's mind, because the same things that we did 20 years ago are no longer going to work. Why? Because the enemy has become more dynamic. He's become more advanced computer-wise. Listen to this, Rob, and I want to say this to y'all. I was kicking it with 2 of my younger cousins. Now, these are 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. And when I began talking with them, I was listening to their radio, listening to their music. I let them control the playlist. And as I was listening to the playlist, man, I was like, okay, they started off old school. Oh, y'all know a little bit of old school. That was just to lure me in. But then I was listening to the lyrics of some of the stuff that they're listening to. And I said, I can't imagine someone listening to this 24 hours a day. And the reason I say this because I am a motivational speaker. I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a life coach. I'm a leadership. I'm a coach of coaches, right? So I understand that what goes into your ear gates, it's going to come out somewhere. And so I listen to the stuff that they're listening to over and over and over. And I'm like, this is great. I said, listen, y'all got to turn this off. Don't ever play this music in my presence. Now, whatever you do in your own presence is fine. I will continually rock with you. I love you, but I cannot allow. Find something else that represents or ministers to you or speaks to your interests or your love. And so they changed it and they got challenged on some things. I gave them some ideas, but I just said, we've got to begin to entertain their mind. The music is entertaining their minds. The fact that it's pushing the envelopes, Little Nas and Lil Kim and the Barbie girls. What's the little girl name? I can never remember her name. But you got EPG, GPD, and Lil Scrappy and Lil Rap and somebody. All of these folks, and I know who they are. I'm just kind of joking by their names. But Baby and Lil Baby, I think Baby's in trouble. But anyways, all of these folks, we have all of these folks that our children listen to on a regular basis. And they are filling their heads up with all of this nonsense when most of them are going back to their $1 million homes in the suburbs, or most of them spend much of their college and their time in trying to hustle to get them and their kids out of the situation that they're glorifying for our kids. And our children are not able to discern the difference. But because we have been lax and children now have rights, something that is brand new to my understanding, because I didn't have no rights. I was living in my mama's house. I didn't pay bills there. So there were certain things that I could and could not do. We need to get back to some real good old fashioned parenting. You're absolutely right, Jeff. Just as you have to address mental health too, lots of undiagnosed trauma. And we're going to get to that. So let's get out there. Let's be seen. My brothers, those of you who are listening to us here, let's get seen. I know that the Saginaw African-American pastors are in the process. They have been working and saying, listen, we're going to do something. My prayer is pastors don't let me down because I am a part of this organization. Please don't do a press conference and say something and we don't want that anymore. Nobody wants that, including me. And I'm a part of your organization. I hope they don't kick me out, but it's time out for us having these symbolic picture moments. And then nothing ever happens. We need pastors who are going to engage. We need pastors who are willing to stand on a street corner. And I'm sure that this is what they're going to do. I'm almost positive. And so I'm excited that they have been talking about getting engaged and making something happen. There are some very powerful men of God who are out there trying to do some things, but we need everyday Joes. We need Brother Terry Reed, Jeff Bulls, all you brothers that are out there. If you knew the street game, why somebody got to call you to let you know that we got to do something different in the streets? So either you don't know for real or you're just not showing. And either way, the streets need you. So it's about time that we begin to mobilize. We've got to be seen in the community. We've got to make our presence known. We've got to begin to engage this no such code. Rob, there was something that our young people came up with when we were talking about ways to engage and things that we could do to change our community. And I want to throw this out there to y'all. They came up with using solar energy so that it wouldn't be an additional impact to our community. Sustained impact, but there will be an initial investment. We got $52 million to create where we could use solar energy and put up solar lights in those unlit areas. We have a number of communities in our neighborhoods that have just fields open because we've torn down the houses with no apparent idea on what we're going to do next. So let's light up those cities. Let's light up those vacant those vacant lots. And they said also, let's put a solar camera on there. We got a no snitch code that says snitches get stitches, right?
I just remember back in the 70s how the block came together and pulled our own money and put posts on every other house on the block there. You just reminded me of that. We came together and put the money ourselves together.
Absolutely.
The city wouldn't give it to us.
Absolutely. And so we're dealing, well, we got $52 million. They still won't give us. It don't even belong to them. But the fact of the matter is they were talking about putting solar lights and having solar cameras on those. And so they would have solar cameras on each of the corners.
Right.
So maybe if you had a traditional city block, there'd be 3 lights on your corner, 2 at each end, 1 somewhere in the middle. with solar lights and solar cameras that would just be recording the neighborhood. And the only people that would have access to those lights would be those people who live on that street.
Right.
Now, if crime were to take place, there was a shooting, something major, like a shooting that took place, the individuals in the neighborhood could then say, hey, we license the police to come in and take a look at this video. And then also each of the neighbors would have a solar light to dress up the neighborhood. Really nice, fancy solar panel light with a little solar camera. You control what's in your neighborhood. And so that way, building some sense of accountability, letting people know there is a statistic that says where there are communities and cameras and people know that they're being watched, crime rates go down.
Yeah, that's right.
I got a dumpster that people continually want to fill up. I'm putting a camera out there because crime rates go down when people understand that they're being watched. Jeff Bulls, East, North, and South Side has no broadband access, barely any internet. Huge disparity. You're absolutely right, Jeff. And $52 million would give us the ability to do that infrastructure. Now, this is what's crazy. Is because this $52 million doesn't even touch the things that we can do in education, because I think education is getting something like $64 million. They just was an approval of a bond of 42 for new schools. So now add that to the mix of, there should be no educational deficits in terms of what our young people need. I told them, give me $5 million of your $64 million and I will help you transform every single opportunity that we have for young people. I guarantee it. I'll bring every major corporation, have them match funds, and we will have a tech savvy community for young and old that will be able to do something amazing. But it requires us to be innovative in the way that we do things.
But don't you think politics is getting in the way, though?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Now, if we allow politics to get in the way, then that's our fault. And I'll tell you, at the next ballot box, if you go to the ballot box and you remove everybody who played a political game with your children's future. And so that's why the power of the vote is so important. That's why we got to stop, Sleepy Joe. I'm calling him Sleepy Joe because he's sleeping on us black folks, because we put him in office. And I'll tell you, I'll be one. I was on there and I said, listen, this is the lesser of two evils. And the fact of the matter is you had to vote for somebody. Somebody said, I won't vote for anybody. I didn't trust that Donald Trump was going to be in office. Because one thing that I saw about that dude is whatever he said he was going to do, he made it happen. Now, listen, Sleepy Joe comes, and yes, he is the author of that 1984 crime bill that incarcerated so many people. Absolutely. But now, hopefully, we were thinking, let's get some people. But when you talk about voting rights of black folks being in jeopardy, and you won't cancel a filibuster, and you're playing around with my friend, I'm taking that personally. So if there isn't an election, Republican Party, we might have to, I'm going with Alexander Cortez or somebody who's going to be a little bit more radical, because you don't play around with the people's freedom. See, to him, it may not mean very much, because he is a white man who has always had the ability to vote. He doesn't understand what it means to stand in long lines to be rejected. He doesn't understand the games that have been played with our forefathers about sending them to a poll place and not being able to vote once they got there. So Sleepy Joe, you need to wake up to the fact that we need to end this filibuster so that we can protect those rights, so that we can vote out people in our community who won't stand side by side with us when it comes to having an agenda that will deal with the issues of gun violence. What do you got to say?
Well, President Biden may have influence in Congress, but it's not his call. I mean, that's something that's between Congress and the Republican House. I mean, the House of Representatives and the Senate. They have to take care of that sort of thing. It's
all of them.
But I'm just saying, in all fairness, it's not good to put that on Biden alone, because he can't do that. That's something that Congress itself came up with and is sticking with right now. He can influence them, but I don't think it's fair to throw it all on him. No. I'm just saying.
I got you. But this is what I'm saying.
All right.
What did Donald Trump do? When his people wouldn't vote the way he wanted to, he said, listen, I'm leaning against you on this next election. Come on, we got one chance.
I think that's
and the little guy out there in West Virginia, they need to be letting them know we pulling your chain. We're not voting for you ever again. If you don't stop, playing games with our rights to vote, it's not yours. It doesn't affect him. If you're going to play games with voting rights for people of color, then guess what we're going to do? We're not voting for you. I don't care if we'll vote for a Republican before we vote for you. That's what Donald said. So we've got to begin. This dude was bold. He did what was necessary when it was time to do it.
Congress on him, but
and so we won't have that even. Things are getting ready to change real fast, and history would tell us that we won't have that on our side.
But we have voter apathy.
But Rob, keep some things I don't want to get caught up in voting. Rob, you're going me a whole different way. This is what I want to say. You said something that was very powerful.
Okay.
You talked about our politics getting involved with this money that's necessary for our community. And Jeff, you're absolutely right. We cannot see. This is the thing. If you've never managed $5, then $1,000 might scare you. So we've been dealing with deficits so long. So now we have transformational dollars that are here, and many of them are probably afraid. Like, how do we handle this kind of? We don't want to mess up. Then people be mad. Try something different.
Yeah.
At least if you tried, we gonna rock with you. Say, hey, it was a great idea. We tried. Let's do something different. But we cannot allow this money to not change our community. So when we look at this, we've got to begin to understand. We've got to get against the no snitch code. I brought up what those kids brought up because their idea was to impact our community, and it was they were trying to get around this whole idea of a no snitch code. All of the shooting took place over in Sheridan Park. I think it was about 7. No, it was because I was out to dinner, probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. And they were saying 30 rounds of a semi-automatic gun was shot in the air. 3 individuals ran toward the train tracks. And you mean to tell me that nobody can identify who that was? It's not like they're coming in ski masks. They don't care.
Right.
And they understand that the fear that comes with saying something is very prevalent in our communities. So the reason I brought up the idea that those young people brought up was because those cameras and how they could position those cameras in the community would then prevent people from even having to say anything. Go check the cameras. I ain't got to say nothing. And so that was the idea that they came up with. But what I loved about it, Rob, is that they were being creative and innovative with ways to get away. Culturally, we've got to understand something. This concept of snitches get stitches is not something that was born overnight.
No.
But it is something that has been an intrinsic part of our community forever. And so we are going to have to be able to be creative in how we deal with this so that we don't put people in those situations. I remember Judge Manville Trice, and I think it was one of the attorneys, Travis, I can't think of his last name right now, but he was one of the attorneys over in the prosecutor's office. They were trying to come up with funds to, provide, money for people that were willing to speak. And so they were giving them so that they could be protected in some particular way. Nobody wanted to fund it. Where here we now have opportunities that we've got to begin to do something. Michael Thompson says, why all focus on city council, not school board, getting $65 million, and city has most of its obligations than the Board of Education? Michael Thompson, if you heard my conversation, come from me correctly. First of all, I'm not focusing on the city council, but there are $52 million on the city council. And I did mention that the school board needs to also be aware and be ready to spend this money because they do have $60-odd million. I made that point very clear. If you're going to come into the show, Mike, come with some more suggestions, no more criticism. All right. Love you, my man. Let's make some thank you, Travis Ruffin. Am I afraid if a bunch of youth centers and activities are reopen because maybe kids don't exercise anymore? Many parents won't send them, afraid of mixing with other kids. That's why you don't give them the opportunity. That's why you create a centralized place and you command parents to get over their biases as to whether or not they'll send their kids. You make sure the kids are protected by putting the proper measurements in place. And then you do what we did with this program. This program that we had people applying for this program, Rob. You know why? Because it was Hemlock Semiconductor. It was Microsoft. It was the best technology trainers and creators that we had. And we literally had people that were applying for this. Now, after I've already got parents who weren't able to get their kids in saying, listen, if this happens next year, please get us involved. Parents that were involved this year saying, hey, we want to be a part of this. It's about bringing creativity and thinking outside the box. Whenever we do the same kinds of thinking, Mike Thompson, and I appreciate your comments and coming in here, we're going to get the same kind of results. Nobody wants to be a part of some cookie cutter solution, but we've got to be innovative. And when you begin to think, see, the problem is we always talk about what needs to happen. And then when you get the money or you get the opportunity to make it, to make something great happen, we lose our creativity. We've lost the ability. We have been working on deficits for so long, Rob. We've been working on being broke for so long that when you actually get something, we ask the question, what would you do with $1 million? You would know what you would do because your mentality would have to change. And so our community must take, absolutely, we've got to take a step back and we've got to look at other cities. Let's stop building and creating programs in fish bowls. Let's go out and let's take a look at the ocean, because I'll tell you, there are some big fish and some great things that are happening on the ocean that can never happen in a fish tank. And so all I'm saying is, and Michael, please don't think that I'm coming at you. I am very passionate about what I'm saying. I don't mean to be offensive. You're my guy. And I appreciate your comments. I'm going to continue to read the ones that you have here. I agree with you. We can't just do a bunch of you. We've got to do youth tank. We got to do youth centers differently. We've got to do ideation differently. I'll tell you something that I saw that made me excited when I saw the little electric scooters going through the city. That is not a Saginaw City idea. Mm-hmm. Somebody has seen something somewhere else outside the fishbowl, and they brought it here to see if we could make it work. Now, it may be the worst idea ever, but you know what? It is something different. And so we've got to begin to understand that the process of creation and the process of ideation and the process of collaboration inspires innovation. So I'm not concerned if you come from the east side, the west side, the right side, your kids don't want to. We can make this thing so exciting that the kids don't want to miss it. Someone says, I've never seen anything like that. I wish you were with me for this past month when I had these 50 kids that doors opened up at 8:30, Rob. The kids were there at 8:10 waiting to get in. We're like, we're not going to let you in until 8:18 or 18. Sweet. They were there waiting at 8:10 to get let in. And they were showing up ready to be engaged. And Jeff, you know this. Detroit ARPA funding discussions is producing some incredible transformative ideas because they're listening to the people and the stakeholders. That must happen. If we come up with an idea for violence that is top down, that is police driven and not community driven, Jeff, and this, to your point, we are going to miss the mark. We have to begin to engage our community. We need a community. We don't have a community forum. Let's have a community forum about this. There were so many marches and community forums about what will the response be from Black America about police brutality and the stuff that happened with George Floyd. Thank God that happened. We had those conversations. My question was, what is going to be the needle change? How are we going to change the needle from that? So I want us to make sure that we're engaging. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to have a community forum, let's have one about the violence in our community. Let's go to the neighborhood house and talk about the violence in our community. Let's all get together. Let's show up at Morley Plaza and have a conversation about what are we going to do to change the violence in our community. I'm not looking for anybody else. And you're right, Jeff. We've got to address the issues of poverty and all of those things. But there are some good common sense things that we can do as a community that don't require funding. They don't require dollars. It requires us to be concerned and involved and connected to our community. Let me get through y'all. So anyways, parental accountability. We talked about this. Fighting against the no snitch code. We got to get to the idea of programming for young people. That is going to be the key because that's who's shooting people. And you know, they're like, there's got to be some adults, some 20-some years. But people like the people in the streets are telling me, no, Kareem, it's 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. That's who's shooting people. This is what y'all telling me. You know, people are saying, oh, no, Kareem, because, you know, it's that young, that boy. And I don't know who they are, but you know who they are because you're telling me you know who they are, but then nobody telling the police. Nobody's sharing this information. What is the deal? Where on God's green earth does this make sense to you that our community is being destroyed?
You won't snitch.
Who won't snitch?
That's why they told you.
No, they ain't give me no names. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm telling your mama, and then I'm telling your mama that I'm telling on you. Okay, we have to be willing. If your life is no good, and you value your life so much that you're willing to allow someone to come in and destroy everyone's life, then your life really has no value.
Exactly.
Amen. And that's where I'm at. I'm at a point right now that we've got to be willing to do something, and you've got to be willing to take a risk. And all of these monies are coming in, and they say that money answereth all things. Even the good books say that. All right. So if money answers all things, then we need to be seeing some change because for the first time, we got a whole lot of money. Now we need some creativity, some ingenuity. We need to have some conversations from the bottom up. The top needs to listen, just like everything else. Listen to what your community is telling you they need, okay? Then we need parents accountable, landlord accountability. I thought about that, Rob. A lot of the things that are happening are, you know, there's a lot of rentals that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens in your house and you are the landlord of that facility, I'm gonna hold you accountable for that. Somebody said, well, you know what, it's your property. And we don't understand how you advertise something will determine who shows up.
Right.
Okay. And I have a situation right now that I got to deal with because somebody don't understand my brand and they think that they can understand and they can advertise based upon what they know. You don't have a right to establish how my brand is. I'm going to show you how I feel about my brand.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And I'm going to make sure that I handle things and create things that are consistent with my branding. So I think these things are all important. Now we got to talk about the issues and Jeff, I know you're out there. There's a lot of things that are expiring. And we can say what we want to about it, just like the water shut off thing expired and we were mad. People saying, you know, you should have paid your bills. You know, you got all this extra money and you still didn't pay your bills. But there's a philosophy that is pervasive. And this is why poverty is so important, in addressing poverty in the proper manner, because poverty is not about being broke. It's not about not having money. Poverty is a mentality. I need you all to understand that. Let's first understand that. When we talk about poverty, we're not just talking about you don't have money in the bank. But we're talking about individuals, and poverty is a spirit. It is a mentality that we carry with us, and we have to begin to engage people over that particular understanding. So the water shut off goes, so now people getting their water shut off. People like, well, you should have paid your bill when you had the money. Now the moratorium on rental evictions is happening, and people say, well, you should have paid your rent. People don't understand that poverty is cyclical. There is a whole understanding and an identity with this. And just because you got extra monies in the pot, I was already living in a negative deficit. So some of this money only allowed me to do some of the things that I really need to do. And everybody that's out there is not taking advantage of the system. I know that those are the ones that are exploited, but there are mothers who have been months and months and months behind on things. And what the pandemic allowed us for some cash to come in, for them to be able to do some things that were necessary. Now, you had a lot of exploitation of this stuff, and we talk about what happens in the hood, but we don't often talk about the real exploitation. And you know, when you're a pastor of a major church, you get $200 million, you know, from PPP loans for something that's an issue. We've got to talk. How are you impacting your community? So this is something that is pervasive. Poverty does not have a color because poverty is a mentality. And as we talk about gun violence, it's important for us to understand that this is a very urgent conversation. This conversation can't wait to fall. And so the reason, Michael, you had asked me before, why are we talking about the city council, because they got $52 million. They're sitting in there and ain't nobody doing it. That's why we're talking about the city council, because to have the ability to effectuate change and to have the measurements and the tools to do so, and not do it, of course, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to talk about it next week. So welcome back to the conversation, Michael. And it's the city council is really, you know, they have a desire to move forward. But we understand we live in a city that the city manager is the one who really calls the shots. They keep him accountable for his job. So the fact that he is, you know, there's no conversation, we got to now hold city council coordinated. So we have to talk to the channels that have the ability to effectuate change. That's why we're talking city council. Okay. So the rest of us out there, I want to talk, and we'll continue this conversation. We're going to talk about some of the antecedents to gun violence. And we're going to talk about those developmental issues. Jeff, you talked about mental health. We're going to bring someone in on next. We're going to talk about mental health and how mental health has a key role in a lot of this going on. And I'm not just talking about people that are running around, as I said, in straight jackets and padded rooms that are on medication, but y'all don't understand how many kids were placed on medication just because if I put my child on medication, I can get some extra money for my child. And you cannot put children and people on medications that their bodies don't need, because it will then create a mental need for those things. And you'll end up with a mental illness because you were faking a mental illness. So, and it sounds crazy, but if you're from the hood and you from the community, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll talk about some of these antecedents to gun violence, those developmental issues. We're going to talk gender and culture on next week. Why are men so violent? The majority of violent cases are created by men. However, why aren't all men violent? And so there has to be some indicators that are there that some men become more pervasively violent than other men do. And when you look at the statistics, I know we're talking about young black men shooting in the community, but when you talk about violent crimes in America, they say that 86% of most violent crimes are created by middle-aged white men. So let's not get into that discussion. We're going to have a real conversation. And if you're going to talk to me, come with your facts. Don't talk about how you feel. Tell me about what's real. I thank you guys for tuning in today. We're setting this thing up to have a dynamic conversation. When we bring our experts in, we'll be able to get some help as we begin to make plans to bring this gun violence to an end in our community. Rob, I got a few seconds left here. I want to end with this poem here, all right? It's Violent Nation by Bill Cockman. Oh, there is so much violence. When will the anger ever stop? Some crazy kills our children, and a thug then kills some cop. We are a nation full of hatred. Our fruit is so rotten and is a rotten crop. The people have so little love from the bottom to the top. Oh, how the Lord must weep each time some gun goes pop. It's time to do something real. Don't let one more body drop. I want to thank you all for tuning in on today. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I love you all. Take care of yourselves and each other. God bless you. Grace and peace.
You've been listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen by the host, its guest,